Both Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 have a seriously packed lineup ahead. We're talking massive RPGs, long-awaited sequels, huge remakes, Souls-likes, platformers, and some legendary Nintendo franchises making their return.
Metaphor ReFantazio is finally bringing Atlus's massive fantasy RPG to Nintendo Switch 2 on November 12, 2026. Instead of modern-day Japan, you explore the troubled kingdom of Ukrainia, where the death of the king starts a strange competition for the throne. Combat mixes traditional turn-based battles with faster real-time attacks against weaker enemies, while the archetype system lets characters switch between different combat roles and build powerful combinations. Outside battle, your days matter. You travel between cities, complete quests, improve personal qualities, and build relationships with your followers. It has that familiar Atlus rhythm of deciding how to spend your limited time, but wrapped inside a much larger fantasy adventure. If you enjoy long JRPGs where story, exploration, and character building all matter, this is an easy one to watch.
Wolong 2: Wings of Ember, currently planned for early 2027 on Switch 2. The sequel continues the series' fast, Souls-like approach, where standing your ground can be more important than simply dodging everything. Battles revolve around reading enemy attacks, deflecting at the right moment, and turning defense into aggressive counterattacks. Expect martial arts, weapons, and supernatural abilities to give you plenty of ways to shape your fighting style. The original Wolong was built around a twisted version of the Three Kingdoms period, filled with demons and famous warriors, and Wings of Ember looks ready to push that idea further. Bosses should once again demand patience and good timing, but the quicker pace gives combat its own personality compared with slower Souls-likes. Portable Team Ninja combat on Switch 2 could be a great fit.
Dragon Quest Monsters returns on December 3rd, 2026, with The Withered World, and this one could be a huge release for monster-catching RPG fans. The adventure features Bianca and Nira, familiar faces from Dragon Quest V, as they journey through a world that appears to be slowly losing its life. The heart of the series is still building your own monster team. You scout creatures from the wild, train them, discover useful skills, and combine monsters through synthesis to create stronger species. Instead of controlling a traditional group of human heroes, your monsters become the party you develop throughout the adventure. That creates a satisfying loop of exploring new areas, finding rare creatures, and constantly rebuilding your team. Dragon Quest's colorful designs and classic turn-based battles make monsters easy to understand, but team building can get surprisingly deep once you start experimenting with different combinations. Stellar Blade is heading to Switch 2 in 2026, bringing its fast sci-fi action to Nintendo hardware for the first time. You play as Eve, a warrior sent to a devastated Earth after humanity has been pushed close to extinction by creatures known as Nightubas. Combat is the main attraction. Eve can dodge, parry, counter, and combine quick attacks with heavier abilities, while perfectly reading an enemy creates openings for serious damage. There's also exploration between fights, with abandoned cities, ruined facilities, side missions, and hidden upgrades rewarding players who move away from the main path. Boss battles are especially focused on learning attack patterns instead of simply overpowering enemies. Under all the flashy sword combat is a story about Eve discovering what really happened to Earth. The exact Switch 2 release date is still unconfirmed, but it's currently expected sometime in 2026. The Elder Scrolls 4: Oblivion Remastered arrives on Switch 2 on August 11th, 2026, and this is the kind of RPG you can disappear into for weeks. You're dropped into Cyrodiil as portals to the demonic realm of Oblivion begin appearing across the land. From there, the game mostly lets you decide who you want to become. Use swords, bows, magic, or stealth, join factions, explore caves, rob houses, complete strange side quests, or completely ignore the main story for hours. The remaster rebuilds the visuals while refining parts of the original gameplay, but the freedom that made Oblivion memorable remains intact. The Switch 2 version also includes major expansions, such as Knights of the Nine and the brilliant Shivering Isles. There's always another dungeon, town, or random encounter around the corner, making this one of those open-world RPGs where getting distracted is basically part of the experience. Lara Croft returns on February 12th, 2027, in Tomb Raider: Legacy of Atlantis, a full reimagining of her original 1996 adventure. Lara travels across locations including Peru, Greece, and Egypt, while searching for pieces of the mysterious Scion. But the journey has been rebuilt with modern controls, expanded environments, and a deeper version of the classic story. Exploration is still central. You'll climb through ancient ruins, survive traps, solve environmental puzzles, and search for hidden paths instead of simply following a straight corridor. Combat brings back Lara's dual pistols alongside other weapons, with more fluid movement allowing her acrobatic abilities to become part of fights. The developers are also expanding areas without throwing away the lonely atmosphere that defined classic Tomb Raider. It looks like a proper adventure game where observation, movement, puzzles, and combat all share the spotlight. Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave launches exclusively for Switch 2 on September 17th, 2026, and strategy fans should definitely keep this one close. The story revolves around the heroic games and an intertwining cast whose different ambitions pull them into a much larger conflict. Battles return to Fire Emblem's tactical turn-based format, where every unit has its own strengths, weapons, movement options, and relationships with other characters. Positioning is everything. Sending a powerful fighter too far forward can leave them surrounded, while smart use of terrain and support units can completely change a battle. Between missions, the game appears to expand the character-focused side of modern Fire Emblem, giving you time to learn more about your allies and prepare them for upcoming fights. There are also clear connections to Three Houses, including the return of Sothis, which immediately raises some interesting questions about the story. The Duskbloods, a Switch 2 exclusive, currently scheduled for 2026. Rather than another traditional single-player Souls game, this is a PvPvE multiplayer action RPG, where players enter dangerous matches filled with both human opponents and hostile creatures. You choose from different Bloodsworn characters, with their own abilities and equipment, then enter battles where the objective can change depending on the match. That means you're not simply hunting other players, you also have to understand the environment, survive monsters, and decide when fighting another Bloodsworn is actually worth the risk. The dark, Victorian-inspired world immediately carries that familiar From Software atmosphere, but the structure is much more multiplayer-focused. Matches are designed around tension, unpredictable encounters, and adapting to whatever happens around you. There's no exact release date yet, but it remains one of Switch 2's most interesting exclusives. Lies of P Complete Edition comes to Switch 2 digitally on August 6, 2026, combining the original game with its Overture expansion. You play as P, a puppet who awakens in Krat, a beautiful Belle Epoque city that has collapsed into madness as its mechanical servants turn against humanity. Combat rewards careful timing. Blocking attacks can reduce damage, perfect guards can break an enemy's rhythm, and dodging becomes essential against larger threats. Weapons are especially fun because blades and handles can be mixed to create combinations with different moves and abilities. P's Legion arm adds even more options, from ranged attacks to tools built for specific situations. Overture expands the adventure by taking you into Krat's past and adding new locations, weapons, and enemies. It's challenging without feeling like a simple Souls copy, and the complete package should be a great portable action RPG. Dragon's Dogma 2: Dark Arisen arrives on Switch 2 on October 9, 2026, bringing Capcom's unusual open-world RPG along with expanded content. You play as the Arisen, a hero tied to a powerful dragon and thrown into a fantasy world where almost every journey can turn into a disaster. The pawn system remains the game's defining mechanic. You create your main companion and recruit additional pawns created by other players, forming a party that learns, fights, and reacts to the world around you. Combat is wonderfully physical. Fighters can climb onto huge monsters, archers attack weak points from range, and magic users can unleash enormous spells that completely change a battle. Dark Arisen introduces additional locations and enemies, including the new region of Norgon. With limited fast travel and dangerous roads, even walking toward your next quest can become its own adventure. Final Fantasy Resonance launches on Switch and Switch 2 on October 22, 2026, and it feels like Square Enix digging directly into the series' classic RPG roots. The adventure follows a group of companions connected by fate as they investigate a mysterious force threatening their world. Crystals, airships, espers, and Moogles are all part of the setting, but the presentation uses cinematic HD 2D visuals that combine detailed pixel characters with modern environments and camera work. Battles are turn-based, with a major focus on exploiting enemy weaknesses. Hit the right weaknesses and you can stagger opponents, break their defenses, and earn extra turns before unleashing powerful resonance attacks. Visions can also be called into battle, adding another layer to party strategy. It looks built for players who miss classic Final Fantasy, but still want a battle system with enough depth to keep every boss encounter interesting. Spyro is finally getting a brand new adventure, with A Realm Beyond coming to Switch 2 in spring 2027. After becoming stranded far from home, Spyro sets out across a new collection of colorful worlds, looking for a way back. The familiar basics are still here: charging enemies, breathing fire, collecting items, and exploring platforming stages packed with secrets. The big change is flight. Spyro can now properly soar above larger environments instead of being limited to short glides, opening up exploration vertically and giving levels much more freedom. His fire breath also plays a bigger role in environmental puzzles, so his abilities aren't only used for combat. After years without a completely new Spyro adventure, this feels like Toys for Bob taking the classic formula and asking how it should play today, rather than simply copying the old games. For 3D platformer fans, this could be a very fun comeback. Elden Ring finally reaches Switch 2 on August 28, 2026, with the Tarnished edition, and this is the full journey rather than a stripped-down release. You enter the Lands Between as a Tarnished, searching for the Great Runes, and ultimately pursuing the title of Elden Lord. The world gives you very little handholding. You choose where to travel, discover enormous underground regions, explore castles and caves, find strange NPCs, and occasionally walk into a boss that makes it very clear you should come back later. Combat supports dozens of approaches, including huge swords, quick blades, bows, magic, summons, and countless hybrid builds. This edition also includes Shadow of the Erdtree, additional armor sets, 2 extra classes, and new customization options for Torrent. Having one of the biggest open-world action RPGs ever made available as a portable Switch 2 experience is a pretty wild prospect. Final Fantasy VII Revelation is currently planned for Switch 2 in 2027 and serves as the third and final chapter of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. Cloud and his companions continue their journey through a world that has grown far beyond the streets of Midgar, with the group moving toward the final stage of their conflict with Sephiroth. Square Enix is keeping major story details under wraps for obvious reasons, but real-time combat returns, blending direct action with the tactical ATB system used in Remake and Rebirth. You'll switch between party members during fights, use their unique abilities, and build combinations that can stagger powerful enemies. Exploration is also expected to remain a major part of the experience, with multiple forms of traversal helping the party move across its large environments. For anyone following this remake project from the beginning, Revelation is the chapter everything has been building toward. Kingdom Hearts 4 begins the Lost Master arc and is officially coming to Switch 2, although Square Enix still hasn't announced a release date. Sora awakens in Quadratum, a huge city that looks surprisingly realistic compared with the colorful worlds normally associated with Kingdom Hearts. That new setting doesn't mean the series is abandoning its identity. Heartless return, Disney worlds remain part of the adventure, and combat once again mixes Keyblade attacks, magic, and highly mobile movement. Early gameplay has shown Sora moving quickly through large environments and fighting enormous enemies with flashy abilities. Kingdom Hearts has always balanced action RPG combat with a story that jumps between very different worlds, and 4 looks like another major evolution of that formula. There are still plenty of unanswered questions, but getting a native Switch 2 version means Nintendo players won't have to rely on cloud streaming this time. Generation 10 officially begins with Pokémon Winds and Waves, coming to Switch 2 in 2027. The new adventure takes players to a tropical island region filled with dense jungles, coastlines, and advanced island hubs, giving this generation a very different atmosphere from Scarlet and Violet. At its core, this is still Pokémon. Explore the region, discover new species, catch them, train your team, and battle other trainers as your journey grows. The first revealed starter Pokémon already give us our first look at the new generation of creatures, while the larger environments suggest exploration will remain a major part of the modern formula. There's still a lot Game Freak hasn't explained about the battle system and world structure, so it's better not to guess at features that haven't been confirmed. But a brand new Pokémon generation designed around Switch 2 hardware is easily one of the system's biggest future releases. Lords of the Fallen 2 is now targeting Q1 2027 on Switch 2, and it looks ready to push the series toward faster and more aggressive combat. 1,000 years after the Great Rupture, darkness is consuming the world, and humanity's remaining sanctuary is beginning to fall apart. You explore the kingdom of Thorngar, while the worlds of the living and dead bleed into one another. The Umbra Lamp once again lets you interact with both realms, opening alternate paths, revealing secrets, and exposing you to creatures you probably wish had stayed hidden. Combat supports melee weapons, ranged attacks, and magic, with different builds letting you approach enemies in completely different ways. Boss fights are designed as major skill checks, while seamless 2-player co-op lets a second lamp bearer join your campaign. The darker world and quicker fighting system could make this a strong Souls-like option for Switch 2. Rayman Legends Retold arrives on October 1st, 2026, rebuilding one of Ubisoft's best platformers for a new generation. The original level design remains the foundation, which is good news because Legends already had some incredibly smooth 2D platforming. Rayman and his friends sprint, jump, punch, and glide through stages filled with traps, enemies, and hidden teensies, while the famous musical levels turn entire songs into perfectly timed obstacle courses. Retold adds new stages, an additional realm, 4 new musical levels, and Cave of Trials challenges, giving returning players more than a simple visual upgrade. The appeal is how naturally everything flows. 1 second, you're carefully searching for a secret room, and the next, you're flying through a stage at full speed while every jump lands on the beat. It's easy to pick up, surprisingly challenging to fully complete, and feels perfectly suited to handheld play. Xenoblade Genesis, coming exclusively to Switch 2 in 2027. The first footage introduces a beautiful new land filled with enormous landscapes, strange creatures, magic, and that familiar feeling that something much bigger is hiding beyond the horizon. The story revolves around a world where the vengeance of a fallen god has yet to be fulfilled, setting up another huge mystery for players to slowly uncover. While Nintendo hasn't revealed every detail of the combat system yet, Genesis continues Xenoblade's action RPG direction, where positioning, character abilities, and party management play important roles during battles. Exploration also looks like a major focus, with huge creatures and vertical environments giving the world a real sense of scale. Xenoblade is at its best when you spot something ridiculous in the distance, and realize you can actually travel there, and Genesis looks built around that same feeling. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is getting a full remake for Switch 2, currently scheduled for 2026. The original follows Link on a journey across Hyrule as he becomes caught in Ganondorf's attempt to claim the Triforce, with the story eventually spanning 2 different periods of Link's life. Its structure helped define 3D adventure games: explore Hyrule, enter themed dungeons, solve puzzles, discover new equipment, and use those tools to reach places that were previously inaccessible. The ocarina itself is more than a story item, letting Link perform songs with different effects throughout the adventure. Nintendo has only shown a brief glimpse of the remake so far, meaning major gameplay changes haven't been fully detailed. But rebuilding this legendary version of Hyrule for Switch 2 makes it one of Nintendo's biggest upcoming releases. And those are 20 huge games heading to Nintendo Switch and Switch 2. From Ocarina of Time and Pokémon to Elden Ring, Final Fantasy, and brand new adventures, the next wave is looking stacked. Which game are you waiting for the most? Drop your pick in the comments, subscribe for more Nintendo content, and I'll see you in the next one.